On a distant blue-green world called Zelara, the wind whispered through tall, strange trees that shimmered in the twilight. This was the home of the Zelari people, an ancient alien race with smooth, pale skin and eyes that glowed softly like stars. Among them was Lyra, a young Zelari woman who stood apart from the others. Lyra was beautiful, smart, and kind. But there was one thing that made her different, and not in a good way. In Zelari culture, every adult had to find a mate to share their life with. This was not just about love, it was about honor, survival, and the future of their people. Those who failed to find a partner were seen as cursed or weak. For them, life was lonely and full of sadness. Lyra was condemned because no suitable mate had ever come for her. Many Zelari men and women chose others over her, and some elders whispered she was doomed. It was a harsh judgment. She felt the cold weight of loneliness every day. The others in her village treated her with quiet pity or open distance. Even her family seemed distant, afraid of what others might say. Every evening, Lyra sat alone by the lake that shimmered under 2 moons. She watched the stars, hoping for a sign that her fate could change. Deep inside, she dreamed of freedom, of a life where she was not judged by old rules. Far away in the cold blackness of space, a human ship approached Zelara. The ship was sleek and silver, with bright lights glowing on its surface. It was called the Odyssey. Captain Mark Hansen, a human explorer, commanded the vessel. He had traveled many light years, studying new planets and searching for signs of life. Mark was curious and kind. He believed in learning from others and hoped to build bridges between different worlds. When he learned about Zelara, he wanted to visit and understand its people. As the Odyssey landed softly near the Zelari village, Mark stepped down in his suit. The Zelari were cautious. They rarely welcomed strangers, especially humans who were strange and unknown to them. Lyra saw the humans for the first time. She noticed Mark's calm eyes and gentle manner. Unlike the Zelari who avoided her, this human did not look away. She felt a strange hope. Mark met the village leader, an old Zelari named Thalos. Thalos spoke with pride, but warned Mark about their strict customs. "Here, every life follows the path set by tradition," he said. "Those without a mate are lost souls." Mark nodded, but wanted to see the people himself. One evening, while walking near the lake, he saw Lyra sitting alone. She looked sad but strong. Mark decided to speak with her. "Hello," Mark said softly. "I am Mark. I come from far away." Lyra looked up, surprised. "I am Lyra," she replied quietly. They talked under the light of the moons. Mark asked about her life, and Lyra told him of her loneliness and the heavy weight of being without a mate. Mark listened with kindness and respect. "In my world," Mark said, "people choose their partners freely. No one is forced by old rules. Maybe your people can find a new way too." Lyra smiled faintly. It was the first time anyone had offered her hope. But trouble was near. The elders watched the meeting from shadows. They whispered among themselves, fearing the humans' words. Change was dangerous. It could break their ways and bring chaos. Despite the risk, Lyra and Mark continued to meet secretly. They shared stories, hopes, and fears. Mark taught Lyra about his world's ideas of freedom and equality. Lyra showed Mark the beauty of her culture and her people's connection to nature. Their bond grew quietly but strongly. It was a small light in the dark world of Zelara's harsh traditions. Yet the village began to notice. Rumors spread like wildfire. Some Zelari felt anger. How could one of their own trust a human? How could Lyra break the sacred laws? One night, as Lyra returned from a secret meeting with Mark, she found her home cold and empty. Her family had been warned by the elders. They told her she must stop or face exile, banishment from her home, a fate worse than death for the Zalari. Lyra's heart ached. She felt torn between the love growing inside her and the chains of her people's laws. Mark stood beside her. "I will protect you," he promised. "Together, we will find a way." Lyra looked at the two moons shining above. For the first time, she felt that maybe her fate was not fixed. Maybe, with courage and friendship, even the oldest rules could change. The wind carried their hope across the shimmering lake, whispering a new story, a story where a human and an alien woman might rewrite the stars. The days passed slowly on Zalara. The blue-green forests whispered secrets, but the tension in the village grew louder with each sunrise. Lyra and Mark's secret meetings had not gone unnoticed. Rumors stirred among the Zalari like a rising storm, and the elders were not pleased. Elder Thalos sat in the great hall, surrounded by other leaders of the village. His eyes, sharp and steady, scanned the worried faces of his council. "This human influence is dangerous," he said in a low voice. "Our traditions are the foundation of our people. If we lose them, we lose everything." "But times are changing," replied a younger elder named Varen. "We cannot ignore that others see things differently. Perhaps it is time to listen." Thalos shook his head. "Our customs are old for a reason. We must protect them." Meanwhile, Lyra found herself caught between two worlds. Every day she longed for freedom from the harsh rules that bound her. Yet she feared the pain her choice could bring to her family and her people. Mark, on the other hand, was fascinated by the Zalari culture. He respected their deep connection to nature and their history. But he also saw the sadness in Lyra's eyes, the sadness of a soul trapped. One afternoon, as golden light filtered through the leaves, Mark and Lyra met near the ancient crystal grove, a place sacred to the Zalari. The tall crystals shimmered with a soft light, reflecting the hope in their hearts. "I want to help you," Mark said softly. "Your people deserve to be free to choose their own paths." Lyra nodded. "But the elders are strong. They will punish me. Maybe even worse." Mark reached out and took her hand gently. "Then we will face it together. No one should be alone in this." Lyra felt courage grow inside her. For the first time, she believed change was possible. They began to talk more openly about ways to challenge the old rules. Mark explained how humans created laws based on fairness and respect, not fear. Lyra shared stories of Zalari history and the reasons for their customs. Their bond deepened beyond friendship. It became a symbol of hope, a bridge between two very different worlds. But news traveled fast in the village. Some Zalari were curious and even inspired. Others were angry and afraid. One evening, Lyra's closest friend, Mira, came to see her. Mira's eyes were full of worry. "Lyra, you are risking everything. The elders have called a meeting. They want to decide your fate." Lyra swallowed hard. "I cannot stop what I feel. Mark is not like the others. He sees me as a person, not a failure." Mira nodded sadly. "I understand. But the village fears change. They do not understand yet." The next day, the village gathered in the great clearing. The air was thick with tension. Elder Thalos stood on a raised platform and spoke loudly, his voice echoing. "Lyra has broken our sacred laws," he said. "She has chosen a human as her companion. This is a betrayal of our people." A murmur rose from the crowd. Some shouted agreement. Others were silent, unsure. Mark stepped forward, his tall figure calm and strong. "I am from a distant world," he said. "But I respect your culture. I do not want to destroy your traditions. I want to help your people find new strength." Thalos glared at him. "You do not belong here, human. Your ways are foreign and dangerous." Lyra raised her voice, trembling but firm. I am Zelari. I love my people, but I cannot live in fear. I want to live with hope and freedom. The crowd was divided. Some began to whisper in support. Others grew angry. Suddenly, an elder woman named Sarah stepped forward. She was wise and respected, known for her gentle heart. "We must listen," she said. "Our world changes. Perhaps our customs must change too." Her words surprised many. The tension shifted. That night, Mark and Lyra met in secret again. "We have an ally," Mark said quietly. Lyra smiled with relief. One step closer to change. But danger was still near. Some villagers planned to stop Lyra and Mark by force. Old fears and anger were hard to erase. The next morning, Lyra found a warning etched into the bark of a tree near her home. "Stop now, or be cast out." Fear and sadness filled her heart. Yet, Mark stood by her side. "We will face this, together." Lyra took a deep breath. "I will not run from who I am." As the moons rose again over Zalara, a quiet determination settled over the two friends. The path ahead was hard and unknown, but their hope was stronger than fear. They were ready to break the old rules, no matter the cost. The days on Zalara grew heavier for Lyra. The whispers in the village were louder now, mixing with glances full of fear and judgment. Yet, beneath the weight of tradition and fear, a quiet bond between Lyra and Mark grew stronger, deeper, and more real. Mark often visited Lyra at the edge of the crystal grove, where the shimmering crystals stood tall like silent guardians. It was their secret place, safe for their meetings, away from the eyes of those who could not understand. "You are brave, Lyra," Mark said one afternoon as the two sat beneath the glowing trees. "I admire your courage to stand for what you believe." Lyra smiled softly, but her eyes showed the pain she felt. "I want to live free," she said, "but I fear I may lose everything, my family, my people, even myself." Mark took her hand gently. "You will never lose yourself, not if you keep your heart open." Their fingers intertwined as the two looked out at the peaceful forest. To them, the outside world was harsh, but here, there was hope. Lyra taught Mark about Zalari history and the deep meaning behind their traditions. "Our rules are old, from times when survival was harder," she explained, "but sometimes old rules become chains." Mark shared stories of Earth and how people learned to respect each other's choices. "Not all traditions are good," he said. "Sometimes change is what saves us." Lyra listened and learned. She dreamed of a world where she could love, without fear. But back in the village, the elders grew restless. They saw Lyra's bond with Mark as a threat to their way of life. The old laws said no Zalari could pair with a human. It was forbidden. Punishment was harsh for those who disobeyed. One evening, a meeting was called in the great hall. The air was cold and tense as the elders gathered. Thalos spoke first, his voice heavy. "Lyra's actions dishonor our people," he said. "We must make an example." Sarah, the elder who had spoken kindly before, stood up. "I believe we must find a new path. Punishment will only deepen the divide." The council argued through the night. Some wanted exile for Lyra, others urged mercy. Meanwhile, Lyra felt the walls closing in. Her family avoided her gaze. Friends kept their distance. The village felt colder, harsher. Mark stayed close. "You are not alone," he reminded her. "Together, we can face this." One day, as Lyra walked through the village square, a group of young Zalari confronted her. Their eyes were hard and voices sharp. "You shame us all," one said. "A Zalari woman with a human? Unthinkable." Lyra stood tall. "I am who I am. I will not hide." The crowd grew, some angry, some curious. Mark stepped forward calmly. "Judge us by our actions, not by fear or old laws," he said. "Lyra's courage shows the strength of our bond." Suddenly, a voice from the crowd shouted, "Change is dangerous. We must protect our traditions." The village was divided, and the tension was thick. That night, Mark and Lyra sat by the lake under the two moons. "I fear for you," Mark said quietly. "But I also believe in us." Lyra looked at him, hope shining in her eyes. "I have never felt so alive." Their hands met again, a silent promise. But danger was near. Some villagers planned to take action to end their bond. The elder's patience was gone. One morning, Lyra awoke to find a message painted on her door. "Leave now, or be cast out." Her heart pounded. Fear and sadness clashed inside her. Mark stood firm. "We will not let them win." Lyra nodded. "Then we fight, not with violence, but with truth." She gathered those who supported her, young Zalari who believed in change, humans who wanted peace. Together, they prepared to stand before the council again, to plead for acceptance. The day came. The great hall filled with anxious faces. Lyra spoke clearly and bravely. "I ask for your understanding," she said. "Love is not a crime. Change is not a threat." Mark added, "We want to build a future together, a future where all can choose their path." Some elders looked away, troubled. Others whispered among themselves. Sarah stepped forward once more. "We must find strength in unity, not division." After long hours, the council agreed to delay, harsh punishment. They would watch and listen. Lyra felt a spark of hope. The road was still hard, but the first cracks in the old walls had appeared. As the sun set over Zelara, Lyra and Mark walked hand in hand, ready to face whatever came next. Their forbidden bond was more than love. It was the seed of change. The quiet light of Zalara's moons cast long shadows over the village as the days moved forward. Lyra and Mark's story had spread beyond the village, reaching ears and hearts across the planet and beyond. At first, many Zalari were unsure what to think. Some clung tightly to old traditions, afraid that change would break their world. Others, especially the younger Zalari, saw Lyra and Mark's bond as a chance for a better future. Word of the forbidden friendship reached the human outpost near the village. Commander Elena, a strong and fair leader, called her team together. "This situation is delicate," she said. "We must support Lyra and Mark, but also respect the Zalari culture." Elena sent human diplomats to meet with Zalari leaders, hoping to calm tensions and find peaceful ways to support change. Meanwhile, Lyra continued her daily life with courage. She had lost some friends but gained others, young Zalari who believed in freedom and kindness. Together, they formed a quiet group that met in secret to discuss ideas and dreams. One of the young Zalari, Kian, became especially close to Lyra. He was brave and curious, willing to ask questions that others avoided. "Why must we follow rules that cause pain?" he asked one day in the Crystal Grove. Lyra smiled. "Because it is easier to follow the old ways than to face fear of the unknown." Kian nodded. "But the unknown can bring new hope." Their group grew, inspiring small changes among the people. They planted new gardens, shared stories of other worlds, and showed kindness to all. But not everyone was happy. A powerful faction of elders, led by the harsh Elder Reth, saw the growing support as a threat to their control. They whispered plans to stop the change and to punish those who dared to challenge tradition. One evening, under the cover of darkness, a group of Zalari confronted Lyra and her friends near the village edge. The air was thick with anger. "You betray our people," Reth said, his voice cold. "You will regret this." Lyra stood tall. "We seek only peace and understanding. We want a future where no one is alone or afraid." Reth laughed bitterly. Your future is a lie. Our way is the only way. The confrontation ended with threats and warnings, but it only made Lyra and her allies more determined. Mark returned from the human outpost with news. "The Council on Earth is watching," he said. "They support our cause. They believe love and freedom must win." Lyra's heart lifted. Support from beyond Zalara gave her strength. Together, Lyra, Mark, and their group planned to host a gathering, a meeting where Zalari and humans could come together to talk openly. It was risky, but it could build bridges. The day of the gathering arrived. Zalari and humans filled the crystal grove, the air buzzing with hope and tension. Lyra stood before the crowd. "We come from different worlds," she said, "but our hearts are the same. We all want to live without fear and to choose who we love." Mark added, "Change is not easy, but it is the path to peace." Voices rose in applause and in protest. Some Zalari elders spoke in anger, but many young Zalari and humans cheered. Suddenly, Elder Reth stepped forward, his eyes blazing. "This is madness! You bring shame to our people!" Lyra met his gaze. "And your rules bring pain. We must grow, or we will wither." The crowd was silent, the moment heavy. Then Kian spoke from the back. "I stand with Lyra. We must choose hope over fear." Slowly, others joined in. The tide was turning. Though the elders still resisted, many Zalari began to dream of a new future, a future where love and freedom could thrive. As the moons rose again over Zalara, Lyra and Mark knew their journey was far from over. But now, they had allies and enemies. Together, they would face whatever came next, united in hope and courage. The winds of change blew steadily across Zalara, stirring both hope and fear. Lyra and Mark's bond had become a symbol, not just for love, but for a new way of thinking. Yet, old fears and strong traditions still held many captive. The future of the Zalari people hung in balance. One day, news came that a dangerous storm was approaching the planet. Not just any storm, a violent plasma storm that could destroy crops, damage homes, and threaten the lives of the Zalari. The elders were alarmed. They gathered urgently in the Great Hall to prepare. "This storm could ruin us," Elder Thalos said gravely. "We must protect our people." But it was clear that the village was not ready. Their old ways did not include plans for such a disaster. Mark watched carefully. "This is a chance," he told Lyra. "If we work together, humans and Zalari, we can save your people. We can show them the strength of unity." Lyra nodded. "We must try." Together, Mark and Lyra called on their friends, the young Zalari, who believed in change and the humans at the outpost. They planned to build protective barriers using human technology and Zalari knowledge of the land. Many elders doubted the plan. "It is risky," Elder Reth warned. "We cannot trust humans with our safety." But time was short. The storm drew closer. Lyra stood before the council. "If we do nothing, we all suffer. But if we unite, we survive. Please give us a chance." Her voice was steady, full of hope. After tense moments, the elders agreed. The storm was too dangerous to ignore. Work began immediately. Humans and Zalari worked side by side. Mark shared technology and guidance, while Lyra and her friends taught humans how to use the local materials and respect the planet. The village came alive with energy and cooperation. The old walls between the people seemed to crumble. When the storm hit, the barriers held strong, damage was limited, and no lives were lost. The Zalari were amazed. Elder Thalos stood with the others, watching the storm pass safely. He looked at Lyra and Mark with new respect. "You have shown us the power of unity," he said quietly. The crisis became a turning point. After the storm, many Zalari who had been against change began to rethink their views. They saw the strength In working together, in opening their hearts to new ideas, Lyra's courage and Mark's support had saved the village. The council met again, this time with a lighter mood. Sarah, the wise elder, spoke for many. "Our traditions must evolve," she said. "We must honor the past, but embrace the future." The elders agreed to revise the old laws, to allow freedom in choosing partners, regardless of origin. The village celebrated. Lyra and Mark's bond was no longer a secret or a crime. It was a symbol of hope and new beginnings. As the moons rose high in the night sky, Lyra and Mark stood hand in hand, knowing their fight was far from over, but proud of how far they had come. Their love had changed a world. The moons of Zalara shone brightly over a village transformed. The air was filled with a gentle calm, a sign of peace after months of struggle. Lyra stood at the edge of the crystal grove, her heart full of hope. Beside her was Mark, her partner, her friend, and the symbol of a new era. It had not been easy. The journey to this moment had been filled with fear, anger, and uncertainty. But Lyra and Mark had faced every challenge with courage and love. Together, they had changed the future of their people. The new laws were now official. The Zalari had learned that love was stronger than old rules, and freedom was worth fighting for. Lyra's courage had opened doors for others who had felt trapped by tradition. The village gathered to celebrate this new beginning. Music filled the air, and laughter echoed through the streets. Zalari and humans shared food, stories, and dreams. The walls between their worlds were gone. Elder Sarah, with her gentle smile, spoke to the crowd. "Today, we honor the bravery of those who dared to dream. We embrace a future where all can love and live freely." Lyra felt tears in her eyes. She looked at Mark and whispered, "We did it." Mark smiled warmly. "We did it together." Families came forward, offering gifts and words of thanks. Even those who had once opposed the change now showed respect and hope. Lyra's own family approached her, their faces soft with pride and acceptance. Her mother hugged her tightly. "We are proud of you, Lyra. You have shown us the way." The night was filled with joy, but also with quiet reflection. Many knew the journey ahead would still have challenges, but for the first time, the future felt bright. Mark and Lyra walked to the lake, the two moons reflecting on the water's surface. They sat together, holding hands. "Your people have changed," Mark said softly. Lyra nodded. "We have, and I believe this is only the beginning." They talked about dreams of peace between humans and Zalari, of shared knowledge and friendship that could last for generations. As dawn approached, Lyra looked up at the rising sun. No one should ever feel alone or condemned because of who they are. Mark squeezed her hand. "Together, we will build a world where everyone belongs." The story of Lyra and Mark became a legend on Zalara, a tale of courage, love, and hope that changed a planet. Their bond had broken old chains and opened hearts, and under the light of two moons, a new era began.